Okay, so here we're going to take a look at the PLC code and what was done on this. And again, we've got something with comments on all the rungs, which is nice and something I rarely do, so that's good. Now, what we have in here, and we've got some things to flash the yellow lights, and those are some timers. It can probably be done a little simpler, but this right here is one sequencer, and all that does is it controls this first one where all 1, 2, and 3 are on. That's when we're doing our lamp test, and that timer is for 3 seconds. And then we start blinking back and forth with the lights. And then after that's done, we go operational. And then from operational, we have right here is when we're not in the single sensor. So this is 4 sensor operation, this sequencer right here. And again, for our sequencers from the original design that we had a single sequencer that would take it up to the hopper. And once it got to the hopper and identified the color, then there were 2 other sequencers, one that would be for the black cup and one to control the white cup and all the processes that were associated with that, which is the timer, which has got variable length fill time for if it's a black cup or white cup, and also where it should travel to go to the sorter, whether it should go to the first sorter slot or to the second sorter slot. And all that's combined into a single sequencer, and that's true whether it's single sensor or 4 sensor. And the thing about trying to do it with the sequencer is because you have the white cup and the black cup, you have to for instance, and I'm not sure that this is the way, but let's say it's a white cup, and it might go from steps 1 through 8 for all to deal with the white cup, and then it has to jump to step 12. And then let's say for the black cup, it might go steps 1 through 4, and then it has to jump to step 9 and complete it. So there's this new cup or new step, and depending on if the cup's white or not white, you have to make these jumps to alter going straight through the program or whether you have to jump forward in the program. And that takes a little work. And I guess what we can do is I can put it in the run mode. I can put it right now, since we're taking a look at the not single sensor, which is the 4 sensor operation. And right now I'm in the 4 sensor operation. So if I turn this on, so I'll just reset it and turn on. There's our lamp test, you can see from the webcam. And now it's just sitting idle until I hit the start button a second time. And when we go into the operational mode, when the time's out, you're going to see this sequencer is starting up. Now, it's going to, that event is when it gets back to the first position. And when it gets back to the first position, that's pushing it out of the dispenser, that's recoiling. And now, because it's a 4 sensor, it's waiting, that is trolley position 2. So when it's at the hopper, it moves forward. And then we're waiting for it to complete. And there it is. And when we have these events, so it is, when this is active, it automatically starts at step 1. This thing that's called event here, and let me see if I can blow up the screen a little larger so we can take a look at it. Maybe one more time. So when we look at this, it's running step 1, and step 1 is causing it to move back towards the cup dispenser. And then X101 is when it's at trolley position number 1. So when it's at trolley position 1, one of these bits is telling it to stop, and the other one is activating the directional control valve that actually pushes the cup out of the cup dispenser. And then when it sees that it's fully out, then we disengage the solenoid and we keep moving on. And I probably don't have those steps exactly right, but that's kind of the process. 102 is the hopper position, and so that's going to turn on our timers that run our motors. And 103 and 104 are the slot positions for the white cup and the black cup. So 103 is if we have a white cup, and 104 is if we have a black cup. So right now, I'm going to run the code again, and right now I can see in the cup dispenser, it's a black cup. So now you're going to see it run, and at some point it's going to jump around the step 104 because, well, it's going to have to run to step 104. So it's going to go straight through, and then when it gets to step 104, it's going to make a jump. And then it'll jump to these last couple of steps, which are for the sorter arm. So let's take a look and see if it runs all the way down to after it gets to 104, and then it'll jump. So here it's at the hopper, and that's the timer. So now we're at here, and we're waiting for it to jump, and it'll jump to these last two steps. And there it goes. Now our next cup is going to be white, and then we'll see it bubble all the way through, and then it will, after it gets to this position here, it will bypass steps 7, 8, and it'll wait until it gets to, and I'm not exactly sure, but it might wait till it gets to step 9, so it might bypass 7 and 8 and jump here, and then it'll finish off. And again, I'm not fully sure on the exact steps, but you'll see it jumps, and that's when you're putting in the new step. So the new step is a register, and the register will tell you what the step should be and where you're jumping to. And you can take a look in the there is a little document from Automation Direct that tells you how to do that steps, but that'll make it so you can do a branch. Normally with the sequence you just bubble straight through, but now you can actually jump through and do different things. So now we're at dispensing the cup, and now we're going in, and when it gets past the timer you'll see it jump. So it makes these steps down here. It'll bypass these steps here, and you can see it made that jump. And now it just waits until it gets to spot 103. And so that's the way the 4 sensor works. And pretty much for the single sensor, everything is based off of, we move fixed links, so we aren't dependent on the sensors at positions 2, 3, and 4. And if we look at some of the fixed link steps here, if I find them again. So the fixed link steps, okay, so these with the FL, these are the fixed link steps. So this is the step that goes from the, well, let's take a look. I'm not quite sure why I see this gap here. But here, this is moving to position 2. So this is moving from the cup dispenser to the hopper. And that takes 500,000 steps of our stepper motor. Now remember, our stepper motor is 20,000 steps per revolution. So that's 25 revolutions of our stepper motor. And if we're going to the black position, which again is the farthest sorting slot, it's 390. If we're going to the white cup, and this is moved to the white position, it's only 163,000. So it moves a lot less. And again, what it's depending on, and the way we work it with the when we're moving fixed length, is there is a bit that tells us when the stepper is moving or stopped. So when we tell it, for instance, to move 500,000 steps, it is going to continuously move, and then when we get to that count, it's going to stop, and that is what moves us to the next position in our sequencer. So if I move all the way back up in the sequencer, and I need to do a better job of finding it, that bit that tells us when the stepper motor stops is bit 208. So you can see bit 208, it stopped here, bit 208 stops here, and bit 208 stops here. And again, when we put it in the single sensor operation, and we'll do it right now, when it gets back here, it'll do the same type of jump. So right now we are going for a black cup I see in the dispenser. And so let's take a look and see where the jump occurs. So 208 is when it stops at the hopper, and then it'll move to 51. Okay, and then so that's going to stop at 208. So it pretty much went straight through, and now it's going to jump to step 12. So it went from step 8 to step 12. Now the next cup, if I run it once again, is going to be a white cup. And so here, it's going to bypass these steps down here, and it's going, so it'll bypass, I guess, steps 7 and 8, and it'll probably move down to around 10, and then it'll run 10, 11, 12, 13 toward the end. These last two are just for the sorter arm to push it forward and push it back into position. And so let's take a look at this. So this is single sensor again, and now it's waiting for the fill at the hopper. And once it gets past that, it will jump past these steps down here to these steps over here. And you can see it jumped right to step 11. And so that's basically the way the sequencer works. And again, you have to do, I don't know, a little bit of fancy footwork to load a register for the new step, which is this DS7, and in one case it's going to go straight through and then it jumps to step 12. In the other case, it runs past these and jumps to the steps down here. So depending on the color of the cup is where we're actually changing this DS register. And let's see if we can see where that happens. So here's where, if the cup is white, we're moving a 7 into that register, and if the cup is black, if it's not white, which is cup is black, then we're moving a 9 into that register. So that register is telling us what the next step is, and then based on the color of the cup is telling us what that next step is going to be. And down here we just have these are regular jog commands, and these are when we're in manual mode is when we also just jog into positions. And I think we pointed this out before. When you are in the jogging mode, so you commence jogging and you're going at a certain speed, you can stop the jog with the SJ command, which is stop jog. But when you are in fixed length mode, which is single sensor mode, the stop jog doesn't work because you're not jogging at that point, you're going fixed length. So you have to use the stop kill command, which is SK. Now, the SK actually works in both instances. So I think the way this code is it just has the SK in there. And depending on the color of the cup, we also have the dispenser time, and this is the time for how much we fill the cups. I think this one at 1500 is probably the black cup. Or no, the black cup is longer, so this is the one that's 2 seconds, and the white cup is 1.5 seconds. We have the LEDs and the switches for if we're in manual operation, we get that lamp, and the same with continuous operation in there. Now, we do a lot of stuff for the animation for the Wonderware. And here is where there's a lot of ladder logic involved, but depending on if you're in manual or if you're in automatic, and when you're moving from station to station, if you're moving to the right, you're counting up, and if you're moving back to the dispenser, you're counting down. So there's quite a bit of logic that goes into there. Now this counter, and we have a travel timer, and that's a very fast timer, and we're counting up to a high number. I think when we have the linear actuator going from the cup dispenser to the final far sorting slot, which is the sorting slot for a black cup, we count to like 575. And so we try to get a fast counter to try to make the cup carriage look analog. Now it's still going to do a little jump just because there's a hardware software issue, but the faster we can count and the higher number we can get kind of smooth motion. And again, that takes a lot of work to get it to actually look right. Now when we are doing the actual cup, and let me just pull in the Wonderware overview over here, if I can, onto this screen. So when we start out and we're in the actual run mode, when we dispense the cup, it looks gray, and then it's not until we dispense the cup is when it turns either white or black, and then we show it in here and we show a different view which actual filled up with the balls. But what this is, it's really, we have our cropped up version of what the actual carriage looks like, but then we also have cups. So this is really 3 cups sitting on top of each other. And so there's a black cup, there's a white cup underneath, and then there's a gray cup that we use initially when we're not sure what color it is. So to make that work, we use a visibility function in all of these things. So if we looked at this, we have a group of symbols because we have all these cups on top of each other, but there's also a visibility. So if we look at each of these visibilities, this one is for the trolley position, which is kind of for the carriage. If we look at the next one in there, there'll be a visibility for the white cup. So if it is a white cup, that's going to be visible. So we need logic in the PLC to take care of all these tags that we need. And if I can push him to the side a little bit, what we have is we have this thing that says, okay, we need to make that cup white, or we need to make the cup black, and we need to also make when the cup is visible. And basically the cup is going to be visible until the cup arm extends, and then it becomes not visible. But we have the gray cup we have to put limits on when it's going to be visible gray, and then when it gets to the hopper, it'll be visible until the very end of the cycle, and we have to do that based on if it's going to make the cup white or black. But we need all these tags just so we can control the visibility of what's happening in the Wonderware. And as you can see, there's kind of a lot of logic with some of these things, when we're manual mode, just to make it latch in the signal for countdown. You can see that we have the reset, we have the HMI stop bits, we have the regular control panel stop, we have the manual operation switch, and then we have the start and stop. So when we're in reset, we latch it on. When we hit start from either the actual control panel or from the Wonderware display, we have to break that seal-in circuit. So it takes a lot of logic involved for this to make it work. And but still, and you can develop it over time. We had just, as we look at the Wonderware, to do that, we just developed the baseline template for what this platform looks like over the course of 1 semester. And then Tom kind of took it upon himself to get the visualization for what we do with making the cups visual, and for putting the cups in these slots, and also with the fault circuitry. So again, there's a lot of work. You can kind of fast forward and get it looking pretty good. You can, if you want, you can just have a cup counter, and that's all it takes is a cup counter, and afterwards you can kind of just put regular pictures of the cup. You don't have to get it quite as extravagant here, but to get it looking really good, it takes a bit of time, and I kind of like the way that this turned out. It looks pretty good. So that is the video for the PLC code. Hopefully you can kind of follow it, but part of the thing is you can design your own code, but you can get it looking pretty much however you want. And I've found in other PLC programs that I've done is this Wonderware really gives you a lot of tools to put together what you want, and it takes time, but it's part of the deal. Anyway, good luck. Thanks.